Throughout history, there have been countless unexplainable stories, events, and moments captured on audio. These horrifying tapes were archived, never to be heard again. Until now. These are the tapes of trepidation. Tape number 92. Never use the last locker on the left. Before I share my experience, I want to be clear that I always thought my Uncle Stanley just had a few screws loose. Well, maybe that's not fair to say. But he's always been an odd guy. Ever since I was a kid. He would share these crazy superstitions with me. Not the normal ones everyone knows. Spilling salt, broken mirrors, walking under ladders, black cats crossing your path. You get the idea. But ones I've never heard from anyone except him. Close that east-facing window, boy. It's bad luck, damn it. He barked at me once. You expect me to drink milk today? It's the 17th of the month, for God's sakes. Use your brain, woman. He screamed at my mother as he threw the glass across the room, shattering it against the wall as the white liquid poured on the floor. Just the weirdest and, quite frankly, dumbest superstitions I've ever heard. My parents always told me that he had never been quite right since an incident in high school, but they never shared with me what happened. My dad never spoke about it, and, well, you could never truly believe anything my old Uncle Stanley said. Due to this, when I was visiting him the week before I started high school, he gave me a warning. And I just shrugged it off. Just another crazy thought from old Uncle Stanley, I said to myself with a chuckle. Knowing what I know now, if I could go back, I would have listened to him. I would have wrapped my arms around that man and never let him go. Because now I know he isn't crazy. We were just about to leave his apartment when my mom informed him I'd be starting high school next week. It was almost as if she had said the most horrible thing to him. Uncle Stanley leapt out of his chair with a finesse I'd never seen from him, grabbed my arm so hard it left red marks where his fingers grasped my skin. He looked into my eyes with a fear I've never seen from another human being, and said in as serious of a voice as I've ever heard from him, "Never use the last locker on the left." Tears formed in his eyes as he spoke. After a few seconds of uneasy silence, he slowly let go of my arm and shuffled back to his favorite worn-out chair. My mom had no idea how to react. I could tell she was upset with him, but what can you say to someone in his state? He couldn't help how he was. She gently rested a hand on my shoulder, as I promised him I wouldn't. Once we got into the car, my mom repeatedly asked me if I was okay, that she had never seen him act in such a way, and that, unfortunately, His mind must be unraveling even further. I promised my mom I was okay, and we never spoke of it again. Hell, I never even thought of it again until a year and a half later. My freshman year of high school was uneventful, to be honest. I was a quiet and fairly small kid. Sure, I had a few close friends from elementary school, but we did our best not to make any waves. Over the summer, though, I had an unexpected growth spurt. Seemingly overnight, I gained a few inches in height, and my body filled out with some much-needed mass. It was during this period I fell in love with contact sports. Most young men do in some way, shape, or form. Testosterone and all that, I guess. For me, though, I enjoyed the camaraderie of the games more than anything. A team of people, all working towards the same goal. It was a great feeling. This grew into an opportunity to join my school's rugby team. As it turns out, I was a rather gifted halfback and had a natural mind for the game. Our team was full of large guys who all welcomed me like family. And to be honest, they were all great guys. Most of the time, you hear about jocks being assholes or hazing new people. But that was never the case with us. I digress. After a few months of learning the game and having a couple wins under our belt, I may or may not have gained a little bit of an ego. I felt invincible, like I was the star of the team. I never outright acted like this to my team, but I showed off my ego in more indirect ways. Usually, it was by being the last one to show up for practice, or not being fully involved. I regret that a lot, and not just because this was really the cause of what happened to me, but because those guys never deserved it. I guess karma really is a bitch. One afternoon, I was very late. Almost half an hour to be exact. I came strolling into the locker room to find that almost all of them were being used. I guess there was another team practicing in the gym that night or something. I was pretty frustrated as I walked around looking for somewhere to stash my clothes and make it out for what was left of practice. I ran up and down the rows of lockers until I came to the last row. I stared down the row to my right and worked my way over, finding them all to be taken, except the side opposite of the right, the side to the left of where I was standing. I paused for a second as my uncle's words echoed in my brain. Never use the last locker on the left. Admittedly, I was freaked out for a second. What were the odds that this was the only locker left out of the whole locker room? I nervously chuckled to myself as I made my way over. It was just a silly superstition from a crazy old man. Besides, what constitutes the last locker on the left, anyway? Is it the left from when walking in the door? From the wall? It's kind of ridiculous now that I think about it. Reaching out for the handle, I opened the locker. I hesitated. But with one final shaky breath, I opened the door with a squeak, only to find that the locker was empty. There wasn't even a speck of dust in it. I let out a sigh of relief as I chuckled to myself at what a little bitch I had been. I threw in my bag and street clothes, changed into my uniform, and ran outside to join the practice. Coach was, let's say, less than enthused by my antics at this point. He made me stay to run laps around the track, yelling at me the entire time. I'm not sure how many laps I did, but my legs were like jelly, and I felt like I was going to be sick. Then came the squats. So many squats. After the boot camp-like torture and the inevitable bout of puking that came afterwards, Coach dismissed me with a stern lecture. I practically had to crawl my way back to the showers, but after getting some warm water on my aching muscles, I felt a little better. I sat down in my towel for a few minutes before making my way back to my locker to change into my street clothes. Normally, I'd bring them with me, but the locker room was empty, and there was no way I was making it to my locker after my grueling punishment without a warm shower. Toweling myself off, I made my way to the far end of the locker room. Turning the corner to where my locker was, I was shocked to find my bag and street clothes on the floor. I cursed out loud as I jogged up to my stuff, thinking one of the other locker room occupants must have broken into my locker. I picked up my bag and rummaged through it to find my wallet and phone were still inside. I breathed a sigh of relief while I picked up the lock that had previously kept my gear secured. It was fully busted. Not like someone had cut it, but like it was torn off by hand. The little piece of metal attaching the lock to the door was also on the ground. Weird. I guess my attitude was affecting the rest of the guys more than I thought. As I opened the locker that previously held my bag, wanting to make sure nothing had fallen out, I froze, unable to move a single muscle as my breath began to quicken. Staring at me from inside the locker was a pair of dark, oval-like eyes, attached to a horrible creature. I call it a creature because there's no way it was human. It was folded up inside the locker, with its face directly at eye level with me. Its skin was a dull white and seemed moist to the touch, as if it were sweating uncontrollably. The arms and legs of this creature were tucked up inside the locker, bending at impossible angles, as if it were stuffed in by force. Its face was long, as if it had been stretched from its mouth opening too wide far too many times. And it was covered in what looked like dark, bloody bruises. I slowly took a step back as the creature looked at me with its horribly elongated face, displaying an emotion that to this day I can't comprehend. Fear. A deep, primal fear. As if it were more afraid of me than I was of it. Turning to run away, I tripped over my own feet and fell to the ground. Looking back at the creature, it opened its mouth as if it were trying to scream. But no noise was produced except for a deep rasp escaping from its vocal cords as if they were shredded beyond healing. Moving as fast as I could, I turned the corner while looking back over my shoulder. And I wish I had never done so. Coming out of the locker was an impossibly long arm that was racing towards me with its pale hand opened. I screamed, filling the otherwise silent room with an echo of terror as I booked it towards the door. I was only a few feet away when I felt a sharp pain on the top of my head, like several sharp knives digging into my flesh. I screamed out as I felt myself being yanked backwards and then Nothing. I awoke to the sound of hush whispers and EKG heart monitors, followed by the warm but tired voice of my now sobbing mother as she hugged me. I was in immense pain. I had bruises and cuts all over my body, and I later found out I had a severe concussion. The doctor asked me a few basic questions, but I was still in a lot of pain, so I couldn't tell you what they were. Then the police came, wanting to know everything about what had happened in my attacker. So I told them the truth. I told them everything. How that thing in the locker was at fault. How it looked. The sound it made. How I passed out when it grabbed me and began pulling me back. Everything. Let's just say it didn't go over too well. My official diagnosis was that I am suffering from severe PTSD from my attack. That I clearly made up a fantastic story to protect myself from the real trauma that I endured. I kept insisting that I wasn't lying or making a damn thing up. But it didn't matter. No one believed me. The cops did a thorough investigation into my assault, but came up with nothing. They even tried to pin it on our old school custodian, Mr. Landers, but he had a rock-solid alibi as he was actually chatting with my coach when they both heard my screams, only to find me stuffed inside the last locker on the left, unconscious and bloodied. Eventually, I had to change my story around. It was the only way they were going to let me get on with my life. Whatever the hell that looks like now. I couldn't help but feel cheated. No one believed me. And I had to face this new reality of what I had been through alone. Since that day, I haven't had a moment of peace. It's not that there's anything wrong specifically, but at the same time, everything is wrong. I have a constant feeling of dread that sits just beneath the surface of my subconscious. Like that thing is going to find me again. Or rather, I'll find it. Every time I close my eyes, I see its face. Its look of primal fear as I open that locker door. The terror that registered on its face. And the attempted scream. It's like I can feel what it felt in that moment. Only the feeling never goes away. No matter what music I listen to, the movies I watch, the games I play. Hell, even trying to chase girls didn't totally distract me. Nothing helped. That was until I visited my uncle a few months later. I walked into his living room, just like I had dozens of times before, and sat down. Without a word, he made his way over to me and sat down beside me on the couch. Something I had never experienced before. He looked at me in a way I had never seen him look at another person before. As he put his hand on my shoulder, my parents told him what happened. They said he hoped I got better soon and that he would like to see me as soon as possible. I didn't think anything of it. But looking into that man's sad and tired eyes, I knew why he wanted to see me. I understood why he had warned me. Why he was the way he was. And why he was so distant from everyone. So as to not burden them with his suffering. All of the crazy superstitions were to distract him from the same underlying constant fear that took over his life. If he focused on them, he would be distracted. Even for a little while. From what he really feared. Without a word, I understood why he was showing me more emotion than he had shown anyone in decades. He gave me a weak but reassuring smile and patted me on the back as I felt tears well up in my eyes. He nodded at me as if to give me permission for what he knew needed to happen. Overwhelmed with emotion, I fell into his embrace and let out all of the tears I had shoved so far down. This new fear that had overtaken my life was not just because of the creature, but because of how others now perceived me. How they thought my PTSD caused me to make up this story. And how they would judge me if I let these emotions out. But as I wept into my uncle's bony but comforting shoulder, I knew he, more than anyone, would never judge me or look at me any differently. I was certain of this because he knew from his own experience to never use the last locker on the left. This has been tape number 92. Never use the last locker on the left. By the Tapes of Trepidation Horror Narration Podcast. Never use the last locker on the left was written by TJ Hodder. Narration, production, and sound design for this episode was also by me, TJ Hodder. Credits for music and additional sound design can be found in the show notes. The Tapes of Trepidation theme was written by the incredible J.M. Scherf. All logos, banners, overlays, and graphic design work was provided by the talented Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. If you have a story you would like to submit or question regarding the show, please contact us at tapesoftrepidation.podcast@gmail.com. Support the show by subscribing and leaving a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcatcher, or like and subscribe on YouTube. And be sure to tell your friends. Word of mouth is extremely helpful to a podcast like this one. And check us out on social media through the link tree in the show notes. We have Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Discord. And if you'd like to support the show a little more, consider joining the Tapes of Trepidation Patreon. With as little as $5 a month, you can gain access to monthly bonus short stories / micropasta narrations, the weekly behind-the-scenes podcast within the archive, and more. So come, join us, and become trapped within the archive. Just like my current patrons. Doozer Pin Dan, Ronan Komori, Eric Phones, Patrick Stewart, Madam Strangeways, Dr. Torment, Tori, Queen Cam, and Kai Faden. Thank you all so much for the support. I couldn't do this without you guys. Well, dear listeners, today marks 2 years of Tapes of Trepidation. If you've been listening since day one, all I can say is thank you. Your support truly means the world to me. And even if you're a new listener, still, thank you so very much for the support. I hope you're having a wonderful time with us. I've got a lot of really cool things planned for this year, and I have zero intentions of slowing down, and I hope I can keep bringing you all the trepidation. All content used on Tapes of Trepidation is either original, used with permission, or is available under Creative Commons by Share-alike license. All rights reserved unless otherwise stated. Licensing information can be found in the show notes. This podcast and its content may not be redistributed or rebroadcast without the express written consent of Tapes of Trepidation and the story's author. Thank you all so much for listening.